Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10, and I'm joined today by Alison McConnell and Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW Twitter handle. You know the drill. It's always a good Friday when you're joined by Alison and Sean. Good Friday to you all, troops. How are you all doing? Alison, how are you?
Good, thank you. You?
Yep. Sean, yourself?
Fine and dandy, Tony. Aye.
Well, it's, as I say, it's Good Friday, and on Easter Sunday there's a small matter of the Scottish Cup semi-final between two Glasgow clubs in a game of association football. Sean, what do you say to that?
Aye, I mean, first and foremost, I think Brian, straight away there, first comment in, can Celtic capitalise on the 120 minutes? I think that's what everybody's been asking since last night. I don't think the result was what a lot of Celtic fans would have been concentrating on. I think it would have been, well, here, hold on, it's 120 minutes into their legs before Sunday. Aye, I mean, it is what it is. It's the second part of a trilogy.
Part two.
That's it. When it comes to team selection and stuff, we'll obviously hear from Mans Postecoglou later, but I think there's only a couple of real questions. I mean, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. Now, as you can see in the bottom of the screen, if you subscribe to the Celtic Way, it costs you £1 for the first 2 months to support top quality journalism, and the 3 that you can see on your screen as well. And if you want to win with a chance of winning a £100 gift card, you know what to do, guys. We tell you every day. Log on www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and we always appreciate the ones that have subscribed already. We hope that new people will subscribe. If you enjoy the bulletins, you'll see all sorts of great content on the site. Now, Alison, Sean hinted at it there. Team selection and quandaries that we were speaking off air just before we came on. The biggest quandary being possibly, we'll find out later on today, about Giakoumakis' situation, but Kyogo is waiting there on the wings. He's at the starting blocks, Alison. Do you believe he would be ready to fill those shoes if Giakoumakis is ruled out for any length of time?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think he's had a bit of football, maybe not enough that you would start him in normal circumstances, I think. But I think if needs must, then you know that he's there. And I think you kind of know the attitude that he has too, that he would be keen to play, that he would want to play. You saw it in the League Cup final when Ange Postecoglou was saying, I think he'd have been sneaking on the bus just to make sure he was there. So I think he would certainly be willing. I think in an ideal world, Celtic would prefer to start maybe with Giakoumakis and then bring him on and have some kind of role. I just don't know that he's been out for 3 full months. Would you get an hour out of him if he started? But it's interesting. I think we'll know more when you get a fitness update. But certainly what you're seeing for the last couple of weeks are options coming back.
Sean, we were the other day delivered that line that he would have snuck onto the bus, he would have snuck onto the park, and he wasn't kidding. He just said he was that kind of player he wanted to do, contribute to the team cause, score 2 wonderful goals. Now, Brian's comment there about Rangers in 120 minutes. What's your thinking on that one? Would you be inclined to go with Alison if Giakoumakis is fit, he starts and bring Kyogo on, bearing in mind that Rangers have played 120 minutes, or does it not play out like that in your mind?
I don't think he'll base it on the fact that Rangers played 120 minutes, but if Giakoumakis is fit, then I think I wouldn't break up that front 3 just now. I think they've been dovetailing superbly.
Yeah.
So obviously Maeda, Jota and Giakoumakis I'm talking about. I mean, but it all does depend on Giakoumakis' fitness. If he isn't quite right, there's a couple of comments coming in here and they've kind of nailed it for me. Patrick McLaughlin, that's who I would go for. I think I would be erring on the side of caution maybe. It depends on Kyogo's fitness as well. But if he'd rather not put Kyogo straight in from the start, I suspect it would be Maeda central, Jota left and Abada right, which is still, to be honest, still a frightening prospect for defenders who've played 120 minutes on Thursday night.
Well, bearing in mind that Abada has been pretty unfortunate to find himself out the team, Alison, because he has delivered when he has played. And he got another goal on Saturday when he came on. I think that took it up to 15 goals for the season, didn't it?
It's been an excellent return from Abada. I think he was unlucky not to score at Ibrox as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 really good chances when he came on. The one poor effort that he drew wide, and the other one that Alan McGregor had a decent save, the hand that tipped it over. But I think he's a threat. I really do. I think he's capable of goals, as his return would show, and I think he's a clever player too. I think he definitely adds something to Celtic in an attacking sense, and I would agree with you. I think he's been quite unfortunate to find himself not starting more regularly, just the way that the games have started to pan out over the last few weeks and the performances that have come from that front three.
I'm a kind of, if Kyogo's fit, he plays kind of guy. That's the way I see it. And I think the Hampden Cup final showed you exactly if you can get that from Kyogo. He's just a quick and clever player. But I take on board about Abada because a lot of people think he actually functions better at centre forward, Sean, which is what we've been.
Abada, I mean,
you'd have no qualms about putting him in there. That's what I'm saying, you know.
No. I mean, obviously, we made that case away back when Kyogo got his first injury of the season and stuff, and he has played there a couple of times, and he's done well. I would suspect with Maeda there, it would probably be Maeda through the middle with Abada on the right, Jota on the left. But again, the way that the interchanging wing play, especially with Jota and Maeda switching after 25 minutes, half an hour or so, the last couple of games has worked well. That's still possible if Abada's on, and that adds another dimension because one of them can go through the middle as well. So there's a lot of flexibility up there, regardless of the front three, I would argue.
I think as well, Alison, that it's just wonderful to be actually talking like this, isn't it? Because earlier in the season, it was just like, well, if he gets injured, they're in Stoke. Now you're talking about players rotating and guys playing in different positions.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it before. I think there was probably an over-reliance in Kyogo in the first half of the season. I think injuries showed the lack of depth in the squad and the lack of options. I think for that first 4 or 5 months, I don't think Ange Postecoglou ever had a fully fit squad to choose from. And then what you've seen is players coming back in and getting fit, and also the signings that were made in the January window just offered scope for change. And I think what was notable is that they weren't squads players who were signed in the window. They were first team ready. They came in and made an impact immediately. Hatate and O'Reilly and Maeda all contributing, and all have contributed since coming in, and I think you can't overlook that. I think they offered a versatility to Celtic that they didn't have in the opening few months of the campaign, and now with Kyogo coming back again, you're back to the very welcome headache of how you change a winning formula to bring him back in again. And the other interesting aside too, that everything's gone very quiet on Christopher Julian. We saw him coming back into the squad for the Raith Rovers game, and then he's gone back out again. And to go back again to the opening few months of the campaign, when you're thinking, when does he come back? There was a real look towards getting him back into the team because that backline seemed so unsettled in the first few months. Now you're thinking, does he get back in? If he's fit and available, is there a place for him there?
Yeah, someone comes in with a fitter, quicker, more mobile team over the pitch. Kyogo enhances that. I believe that too. But also, talking about quandaries, Sean, Matt O'Reilly, did he play himself into contention last week with that wonderful 45 minutes that he had against St Johnstone? I
think he did. I mean, I think of the rest of the team, right? Keeper in defence, I think we're pretty solid. I think that's settled. And just on what Alison said there about Julian, the same goes for Stephen Welsh. Like, Ange name-checked him last week as an example of how strong the squad is. That he's done nothing wrong, but is not getting in the kind of matchday squad necessarily. Might be the case with Julian, I don't know. It might just be the fact that Beaton can cover two positions and neither Welsh or Julian can. But I'd argue just in general, keeper in defence, I don't think anybody's going to advocate even now for Greg Taylor to get dropped and switched. So I think probably keeper defence is fine. It's further forward. It's the midfield that's the kind of real conundrum. I think you'll probably go Reo Hatate and Tom Rogic. But, I mean, Matt O'Reilly's done everything expected and more to stake a claim. So I don't think anybody would have any complaints if he does start. I just don't think it would be Rogic and O'Reilly. I think it'll be either or.
Alison, do you see that yourself as well? It's either Rogic or O'Reilly?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And I think just given Rogic's track record at Hampden, given his suitability for the big occasion, I think he's a player who tends just to come to the fore. I think his experience maybe just gives him the nod of O'Reilly. But what it does give you is a very strong bench. If you've got O'Reilly to come on, you have an option to genuinely change the game. You have an option for somebody who can come on and stamp his authority on the game. And I think that gives you some assurance when you know that you've got a fairly strong pool that you're going with.
You can see the comments coming in here. Everybody sort of saying Rogic has to start because he's
There's one that says
O'Reilly. Okay, start O'Reilly. I mean, that's the beauty of it, that Celtic do now have that strength and depth, and they have options, and we are bringing on quality, or guys, if they're going out the team, they're getting replaced with guys of arguably better quality, if not equal quality, which is excellent. Now, Hampden, Sean, you've written a piece today about Celtic's Hampden record in recent years. It was Bertie Auld, the late great Bertie Auld, that said Hampden was their training ground back in the day, and it's kind of a similar situation the last few years, isn't it? Was it 17? They've gone unbeaten at Hampden, I believe.
17 successive wins, aye. A couple of ones we're saying is not 18, but remember one of the semis against Hearts was at Murrayfield rather than Hampden, so that's why it's an odd number. But I did a piece on for the website today. It's up there if you want to read it. But basically, if they win, it will be 18 successive victories at Hampden, which is just remarkable. I mean, I broke that run down on that piece. Some of the stats are just outrageous. People have been mentioning Rogic there. So I've got a wee graphic I'll just put up. That's all the wins, and you can see the bottom right there. 17 successive wins, 40 goals scored, 10 conceded, 9 trophies won. I think it's inarguable. You used the phrase training ground. I said it was a playground in the piece. It
was Bertie Auld that said that. I'm not going to argue with the late great Bertie Auld.
There's some outrageous stats, as I say, but the one that's probably my favourite, and I realise it's an unbeaten, successive winning run, so you're like that. Well, obviously, it's all positive stuff, but it's still quite remarkable that I've tallied up all the minutes. So they've played 1,650 minutes of football during that 17-game run, and they've only been behind for 13, which I just thought was magnificent because, all right, it's a winning run, but you can still go behind and have to come back. But that's only happened 3 times, and they've only been behind for 13 total minutes in 17 games, which is just outrageous. Maybe more relevant to Sunday is that since that infamous penalty shootout semi-final in 2016, you all know the one I'm talking about, which is also the last time they lost at Hampden, remember? The aggregate score against Rangers in games at the National Stadium is 8-0 in Celtic's favour. So take from that what you will. But I mean, as usual, I've been playing about with graphics, so there's all sorts of ones on there. There's that one I've shoved up just now, and there's plenty of stats like that in the piece. So I go on and read it.
Loves a chart, does Sean Alison, doesn't he? But even looking at that makes for impressive reading, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the longest sequence of results at Hampden across the entirety of Scottish football for one team. I think it speaks to the dominance that Celtic have enjoyed over the last 5-6 years. I think obviously you would look at last season as an aberration on that, but I think their stats are extraordinary, really, and I think probably unparalleled at the minute. But what it does do, I think, is just lend a confidence to going into games like this, to going into semi-finals or finals. There's a comfortable atmosphere around it. It's not a novelty, and I say that appreciating that maybe there's only 4 players who might survive. If you think Greg Taylor, Cal McGregor, James Forrest, Tom Rogic might be the survivors of some of these games, but I think having that in the squad helps. Just being able to prepare players for what you're going to expect, because it is a different kind of environment tomorrow on Sunday for a lot of players there, in that you're going to have a 50-50 split of tickets. It's different from playing at Celtic Park, or it's different from playing at Ibrox. And I think it will have the feel of a big game. That there'll be an energy around the stadium on Sunday, and I think having players who have negotiated it and who are very comfortable and very used to that environment helps you.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. Sorry, Tony. It's funny you should say that, Alison, because I'll just add this one up as well, which is on the piece. And obviously, the guys that have been there longer are going to appear more frequently than this, but still, Rogic and McGregor are right up there in both goals and assists. Not to Dembele, by the way, because he was only there for 2 seasons and he's still the top scorer throughout the run. But Rogic in particular, I want to focus on, because you mentioned him, Alison, more than a few of the comments. I've mentioned him, and I'm getting away half of the article here, but it was when you look at the kind of goals and assists, and I realise there's other underlying stats and all of that, but in terms of raw goals and assists from all these big games, because if they were at Hampden, it's semi-finals and finals, so massive games. Rogic, obviously top for assists there, you can see, joint second for goals, but you know how I like to put it into a better kind of context. So with Rogic, it's always about, to me, rather than total appearances, it's always about the minutes he's actually played, because he rarely plays full games. Even now, he's played more a season, but even now it's a rarity. Certainly during the kind of Brendan Rodgers era and stuff, he rarely finished games that he started. So when you actually look at those totals, 5 assists and 4 goals, the minutes equivalent is just over 10 games. Which just shows how important it is to Celtic at Hampden, which is what everybody's been saying and why so many people are clamouring for him to make sure he's in the starting lineup.
He starts. We get it, Sean. Sold to the nearest bidder. Sold. Yeah, and I mean, as you say, that is impressive, isn't it? Look at that. He's second for goals and top for assists. It just shows you he is a big game player who can produce big game moments. None more so than the Invincible season when he scored the last minute goal that clinched that treble as well.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, as you say, that will give you confidence going into Sunday. But I want to touch upon as well, Rangers last night through to the Europa League semi-final, and it's kind of that's given them a wee kick, isn't it, as well, that they will need to have a kind of last throw of the dice in terms of trying to stop Celtic from winning the treble and trying to stop them from winning the league. But it certainly will act as a shot in the arm for them, won't it?
Without doubt, I think it's a huge result. I think you have to applaud it. I think any Scottish team getting to the semi-final of a European competition is extraordinary, really. I'm sure they'll be delighted with it, and I think it does inject a different feel into the game altogether. I think they go in, people talking about having played 120 minutes. I think if you lose the game, I think you start to feel tired legs and you start to feel a bit down on it. I think when you've won the game, you've got a semi-final to look forward to. I think it's the converse. I think it just, I think it lifts you. I think it bolsters you. I think all of a sudden you've got guys desperate to play, and what they will have on Sunday is a point to prove, because I think they've been written off, really. I think the league has been looked upon as a formality from a lot of people, and I think the game has been pinged on Sunday as really an opportunity for Rangers to rescue their domestic season and prevent Celtic going on and performing a clean sweep. And I think it'll just give them a bit of fight, a bit of grit, a bit of belief, and I think they'll think, hang on a wee minute, we've still got something about us, and we've been written off, but in a lot of quarters, and it's time to go and prove a point. In saying that, I think with the way that Celtic have been playing, I still think Celtic are probably favourites for the game. I think Celtic will cope with it. But I definitely think you can't underestimate the psychology of sport and the difference that a win gives you going into another big game.
Sean, it'll give Rangers fresh impetus, won't it? I mean, there's no denying that. And Celtic will be wary of that. But I agree with Alison. Nothing's a formality. Celtic still have to win this title, and they still have to win on Sunday to keep their treble dreams intact. Be professional, be clinical when they can. Nothing's done and dusted yet. No,
of course. I think, just from a physical standpoint, 120 minutes on Thursday will have an impact. I don't think that's overcome just because they won. I think it won't play into anything Ange Postecoglou's thinking, but it will have an impact in terms of any injuries picked up, which there was, as well as just general fatigue and recovery, especially at this stage of the season. But what I would point out is that when you look at how Rangers have done after European ties this season, despite the last couple of kind of recent high-profile draws, it's been mostly wins. I think I'm right in saying when I had a wee look that they've won 11, drawn 3 and lost once after European ties this season. So a poor display because of simply midweek exertions isn't something Celtic can or will rely upon. And that's where, to me, it comes back to Postecoglou always talking about controlling the things that he can control and his players responding to the tasks at hand on the pitch as they present themselves. I think that holds true for most games, and it holds true in a semi-final just as much.
Yeah, I mean, it is a dynamic that they can't control, but you have to be aware of it. That was all the reason I brought it up, that Rangers, as Alison said, well, it's a shot in the arm for them. They'll come out with swinging, I would have thought, because it is a chance to possibly salvage their domestic season. But Celtic, as I say, have won nothing yet and still have to control what they can control and set themselves up.
I mean, it's an interesting one tactically for me as well. I said that in the last game, and I think it was interesting. I mean, so far, Postecoglou's had Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's number. So far, I don't think anybody could argue that. I think the Rangers manager adapted well in Europe to beat Braga, even if they were wasteful in front of goal, which they were. How he sets up on Sunday will be interesting. It'll be intriguing. The trend of the past couple of derbies has been Celtic playing better creatively in the first half, then later on allowing Rangers to have the ball more, notably in less dangerous areas, and then encouraging them to kind of throw in crosses. So I'll be intrigued just to see how Van Bronckhorst sets up with that in mind. As the European ties, with a couple of our columnists, certainly run up to the last derby, somewhat in this one as well, just pointing out the stark contrast between Rangers in Europe and Rangers in league games. Last night it was a midfielder, Lundstrom and Jack. I'm interested to see if he goes with that again and goes the European route, or if the game follows the previous patterns and Celtic are better creatively and then allow Rangers to have the ball. Does he put Stephen Davis on to try and break Celtic down in a different manner? I don't know, but it's just so intriguing to me. And although ultimately I do, and I want to caveat it with this, I do fundamentally think that it can be viewed as simple as if Celtic turn up and play their best, they will win. But all these things all play into how far that goes.
Alison, George Giacomakis reckons Celtic are the better team at this moment in time. Do you subscribe to that?
I think on the evidence of recent months, you would say yes. I think the way that Celtic have been playing, the goals that they've been scoring, I think if you just break it down into naked stats, I think they've scored more goals in the league than anyone else. They've conceded fewer. They've taken more points across the board than anyone else. I think they've played a style of football that's been particularly easy on the eye. I think when Celtic hit their stride, they can be very, very difficult to live with in an attacking sense. I think the evidence just now would suggest they are the best team in the country, but it doesn't follow then that, that automatically you go in and you win games. You still have to sustain a level of performance in games. And I suspect that Rangers will start at Hampden the way that they started at Ibrox. I think they'll come out, they'll look to come out the tracks quickly, as will Celtic. I think it is an intriguing game. I think the fact that there's a different kind of atmosphere too lends itself to a different game. And I think both teams will walk out the tunnel on Sunday, and I think this is a crucial difference. Both teams walk out the tunnel at Hampden on Sunday believing that they can win it. At Celtic Park, I thought Rangers looked beaten before a ball had been kicked. They dropped points at Ross County. I thought they looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights that night for the first half. Slightly different at Ibrox, but again, I thought when Roderick equalised, you just sensed the flatness and being dispirited by it. What's different, I think, about Sunday is that there will be a belief that they can win.
Sean, the vast expanses of Hampden we hear. Yes, this kind of big green, big bowl in Mount Florida. It's conducive for a football playing side. Do you concur with that it might suit Celtic, this vast expanse of Hampden, whatever that is? But I think it's just the size of any normal pitch. It just looks bigger, doesn't it? That's the thing.
I think it does suit Celtic, not just because of the record, but the size of the pitch does suit them. What I would say is, depending on, again, I'm going to go back to the tactics, depending on the lineups. For instance, Frank's put in this comment here about starting Rogic and O'Reilly together. Now, I disagree with the last couple of words there. I don't necessarily think that's the big concern that they'll be kicked off the park. I think it's the gaps that they'll leave if the two of them play together. I think Rangers would maybe pass through Celtic if that was the case. I think Bodo Glimt showed that a team that knows how to play out of a press will exploit Rogic and O'Reilly playing together. Rangers, even though they're in the semi-final of Europa League, I don't think you've seen the kind of performance that Bodo Glimt put in against Celtic from Rangers this season, even in the game that they won. But I think that would be the concern for me. if it was Rogic and O'Reilly, not the fact that they'll get kicked. I think they will get kicked, especially if it's Lundstrom and Jack in the midfield, but that's not the primary concern, I would argue. But the kind of the size of Hampden would only exacerbate that for me, I would think. But then there is also the logic that it's almost two guys sitting there tormenting them if everything clicks. But that would be the concern for me if it was Rogic and O'Reilly.
Alison, do you think Hampden could suit Celtic?
I think it suits both teams, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think kind of suits the way that both teams play. I think if you look though at the way that Celtic play and how they utilise the wide players and how they utilise fullbacks, I think I think the expansive pitch does help Celtic, but I don't think it will be a huge factor. I think it's an open game. I think on Sunday you're going to have two teams going for it, hammer and tongs. I think.
Yeah. In that case, Alison, do you expect a lot of goals? Could it be one of those kind of thrillers?
I'm not sure. I think Celtic were fairly resolute at Ibrox a fortnight ago. I thought they stood up to everything Rangers had to offer. I think maybe Rangers will feel that there was an over-reliance and just hitting cross balls into the box all the time that Starfelt and Carter Vickers were just mopping up. They might look for a different kind of approach, but I certainly think it'll be an open encounter. I don't think it'll be cagey at all. I think both will go for it. I think both will try to win it, will want to win it, will believe that they can win it. And then whatever happens after that, it'll be interesting for us to watch.
A goal fest or a slugfest, Sean?
Well, Steve has put up this comment there, clash of styles. I'm a boxing fan. Styles make fights, is the saying. So don't put it past it if depending again on the tactics and the way the Rangers line up, if they try and play it as a European game again, Celtic getting an early goal, you never know. There could be a few goals in it. I'm going to put this up just because it made me laugh. Maida's quickly becoming my favourite player to watch. Love watching the ball bounce off his beautiful bald head, which is what people said in the pitches at Inverclyde when I was playing football, I think. But
is that you just empathising with me?
They said before he's got the best haircut in Scottish football. Took the mantle from Scott Brown.
you like Maida are very aerodynamic in the field, is that what you're saying? Yeah, indeed. Well, it's probably come to that time. We can't avoid it anymore. Got to be score predictions, all right? I'll put you in the spot first, Sean.
Fair enough. It's good going first because it means that you need to try and think of a different scoreline. Given all that I've kind of dived into the records of the Hampden stuff the last day or so, I'm going to go 2-0 Celtic because that's the way that it's averaged out so far. 8-0 on aggregate in 4 results, 4 meetings. So I'll go 2-0 Celtic. And as you well know, Tony, I've been waiting in Carl Starfelt first goal scorer all season, so I'll even give you a goal scorer prediction.
Excellent. 2-0 Celtic. Carol Starfelt in the score sheet. That's bold and big and brave. Alison, are you going to be as bold and big and brave as Sean?
I'm going to say 2-1 Celtic. 2-1. I think it'll be quite close. And if you push me for a goal scorer, I'm going to say Tom Rogic will score at Hampden again.
What's funny because I had in my head the two Seans there, and David Bradley as well. 3-1 Celtic. Sarah was a bit optimistic there, I think, with a 5-1. Yeah, I think 3-1 Celtic. I just think, like Jack and Marcus, I believe Celtic are the better team. I think they're more potent from middle to front. Yeah, I'll say 3-1 Celtic. Frank Brennan 1-0 and hiding behind the sofa with 10 minutes to go. Well, there you go. 4-0. These are a rarity. 4-0.
See, after we laughed at the 15-0 prediction and it ended up 7-0, I'm not too sure about dismissing 4-0s and stuff now. But no,
I'm not dismissing them. They can certainly happen. As you say, it's eternal optimist in a lot of Celtic supporters. 4-2 gone yourself. Well, there you go. Your name says it all. So, but yeah, I mean, I think looking at those comments coming in, there's confidence, Alison, amongst the Celtic supporters because they think they can go there and win and stretch that winning Hampden streak to 18.
Yeah, and that confidence comes from winning games. It comes from the run that they're on, 33-game unbeaten domestic run. That's where that confidence comes from. They've not been tripping up. It's not even that they've been maybe stuttering over the line in games. It's the emphatic nature, I think, of how they've been winning games. And I think the game at Ibrox would be slightly different. I think it was a different performance. It maybe showcased a different side of Celtic, but I think what you've seen is just a resoluteness about Celtic since the winter break, and they look like a team who are playing like champions at the minute. I think they look confident and assured. But I'm fairly certain that the Ange Postecoglou will be wary of any complacency creeping in just because of that.
Sean, the "we never stop" mantra, the school of thought is that if Celtic bring their A game, then they will be hard to beat.
I think that's true. I think, as I said earlier on when I was going on about the way that Van Bronckhorst's set up, I do think that fundamentally it is true that if Celtic play at their best, then they will win. And I think that's true with any domestic opponent, certainly. But there are other factors that come into play as the game goes on. You never know. But no, in a microcosm, I would agree with you. In a vacuum, I would agree with you that is true fundamentally.
Well, Easter Sunday, 2 o'clock kickoff. Am I right? 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll all come out in the wash at 2 o'clock on Easter Sunday. All I can say is, troops, enjoy your Good Friday, enjoy your weekend. Result dependent, of course. We will reconvene on Monday and pour over it all again. And thank you, Alison, for your contribution. Always enjoy it. Top class. Sean, always enjoy yours as well. Guys, have a great day and hope that Celtic win on Sunday. Keep the treble dream alive.
Cheers, guys.